So we know the presence of the Lord is in this place. And on this fourth Sunday of Advent, the focus is joy. However, the power for the month of December is life. And I think sometimes we forget about the joy that is in our life, that is there instantaneously, as long as we acknowledge it. And life is a fabulous power for December because we know that Jesus was born and that gave life to this small child that represents that Christ self within us. And if we think about the joy of Christmas, we can also feel the joy within ourselves and enliven that Christ self that is our direct connection with God. And it is the Spirit of God that we breathe in and out, the Spirit of God that we bring forth with that joy. And just even thinking about the word joy and life together changes our perspective. We focus then on the truth of our being, which is that we are a child of God and we are here to experience life in a joy-filled way. So for this time of meditation and prayer, I invite you to just think about the word life and think about the word joy. Maybe repeat them silently or in your mind, and feel the energy that comes forth with those two words. And maybe if you're not feeling joyful right now, think about life and just focus in on that word as we enter time of quiet, time of silence. So as we come back to this now moment, I invite you to affirm with me, I am joy. Together, I am joy. And I am life. Together, I am life. And for this opportunity to claim this for ourselves and for each other and lift up in consciousness the truth of who we are, we say thank you, God. Together, thank you, God. And so it is. Amen.
Our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying. Our thoughts are prayers. Be careful what you're saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness, and know that God is always there. And every thought becomes a prayer.
Good morning, everyone.
Good
God
morning.
bless you.
Oh, is that Jim?
It is. It was last week. You're going to learn something about Jim here in a minute.
And you didn't bring us no food?
Good have.
2 hunters were lost in the woods. After wandering around a couple of hours, they decided to weigh their options. And one says, well, I heard many people say that if we shoot in the air, that someone will hear us and they'll come and rescue us. And so they shot a few times in the air, waited a little while, about an hour, and then shot a few more times in the air, And waited a couple more hours, and it's getting dark, and they're getting worried. And so one said to the other, said, well, I hope that we get help soon, which the other one responded, I do too, because I'm about out of arrows.
Oh my goodness.
Come on, you have to think a little bit. My goodness. Man, I've been too easy on y'all. I really thought that was a good joke. Even Jim didn't get that much of it. Oh, well. Yeah, now that you think about it, okay, good. Well, joy is the title of today's lesson because this is the last week of Advent, and we always do it in that order in Advent. And, you know, sometimes I think when these orders, not orders, but these times of the year when it comes where we're not required or anything, but we're kind of supposed to do that. That's what everybody expects. You know, briefly, sometimes I think, you know, the rebel in me says, you know, maybe I don't want to do that this time. Maybe I want to do something different. And but it's I don't do anything different because it is important to have some type of tradition, some type of idea of what's coming up. I mean, each one of us have a life, especially nowadays. I think as we go, as we develop as human beings, we all have so much going on, and so many things change. And that's one of the things that one of many things that church offers us is a place of peace, a place where we can count on being supported, and a place that we can count on people that are here to help you. Now, you might not like the help you get sometimes, especially in unity. You know, like Doris was saying, unity isn't for everyone because unity knows, and we teach that the final responsibility for someone developing their spiritual acuity is up to the individual. It's not up to me. If I was able to bless you and able to send you all the blessings in the world, I would, and I do mentally, but I cannot do that for you. You have to accept them. So today is a final day of the Advent season, talking about a specific idea that we have every year, and it's joy. And it's represented by the pink candle, the last candle that we light, from the middle candle, which is the Christ candle. And for those of you that maybe have forgotten or need a refresher, the Christ candle is you. It's where the Christ in you is burning all the time, and that's why it's on all the time. And then the other candles represent the things through Advent. So you can go through them if you want and know that they are all in you also, but you have to light them, okay? But joy is a wonderful experience when you decide to experience it, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
We've all experienced joy, and we've experienced most of the time that we think about joy as far as our human condition. When we think about joy, we think about something that has happened in our life. And so, like, you know, if you have kids around, I think it's easy to have joy pretty easy on the outer sense because they're always giving you joy somehow. Now, that doesn't mean it's always joyful having kids around, but it does mean that, you know, well, like just this morning it was last night, I guess he came up with it. Aiden, or JW, came up with a joke all on his own. And I know I've already told some of y'all, but he came up with this joke, and I couldn't believe it. I said, you came up with that all by yourself. And so let me ask you something. All of the Who's in Whoville, off of the Grinch, you know, all the Who's in Whoville, what is their favorite television station? It's Hulu, of course. That's pretty brilliant, I think. That brings me joy for somebody thinking those terms. That I mean, Hulu's not even spelled the same way, but so what? You know, it's so funny, and it brings you joy from an outer sense that you essentially can feel the joy inside. Kids can do that, or relationships and other relationships can do that. Even if we're smart and we know the cycle of life, as far as life never ending, we can think of joy on people who have left us. I hope everybody can do that. Doesn't mean you're not sad about thinking maybe someone might be recent or a long time ago, may not bring the sadness away for missing that person. But when you think about a person that you've had a relationship that has left has left their body in their time of life, then you can if you had a good relationship with that person, then you can remember those joyful times. Why did you have a good relation? I mean, if you had a good relation with somebody and they died, at least I think, I don't think I'm going to die, but anyway, if I ever leave somebody, and it's like this church, if we ever leave, I want the church, I want that person to be happy, to grow. And don't you?
Yeah.
Want your friends and people that you love to grow and continue to grow even if you're not around them? Of course you do. I hope you do. Or it's kind of, anyway, we all look for that. But that's not what we're going to really talk about today, those types of joy. We're going to talk about joy from the inner sense, from our spiritual understanding. And it is a different joy. It makes you feel the same way on the human level, but it is a different joy. And it's interesting because Clyde and I had this conversation a little bit during this week's class. And I'm going to try to point out the difference, and a lot of people, may not like this, but that's the way it is. The difference is in joy from the inner sense and joy from the outer sense is the difference between the law of attraction and the law of mind action. Now, I know all of y'all have heard that before. The law of attraction was very, very popular not too long ago. It still is popular, and it's a good way to get started on your spiritual journey. Because the law of attraction says whatever you focus on, whatever you think about, you're going to have bring into your life, which is true. And, just think for a minute about whatever, the example I always use. Think about a red car. You don't ever see them until you start focusing on a red car, then you see them everywhere, right? And so when you focus on something, it draws it to you. And that is the law of attraction. And it works. It does work. But the law of mind action is something different. It's coming from the inner part of you because it's thinking, okay, let's use the car as an example. What does the car do for me? It gives me a way to get from point A to point B, right? And so I'm going to focus on the best way to get from point A to point B. And if you had that inkling of an idea of a red car, I bet you're going to have a red, nice vehicle. But it's going to be something that comes to you from an inner sense without you specifically focusing on it instead of focusing on it to come to you. So instead of my thoughts thinking of something outer to come to me, I'm thinking of the inner, exploring what it is to get from place A to place B, and it's coming to me without putting forth the effort. And I also use a lot of the time, I'll use the idea, the truth of the fact that Jesus was a wealthy person. He wasn't his family wasn't wealthy, but it's true that he was a wealthy person in his life. Now, did he go out trying to bring wealth to himself? No, he did not. And did he really accept wealth as far as people, that he was bribed in his life? I don't know if you know that or not, but he was bribed in his life. A lot of people would have liked to have him, with his followers come to him and say whatever he wanted them to say, but he didn't do that. Why was that? Because that was something that his personal spiritual journey he knew about, and that's what he was going to continue on. So there's a big difference, and it's a practice. It's a practice. The law of mind action is a practice of how you're going to do things, because the law of attraction can bring things to you, and you can get pretty much exactly what you're thinking about. But the law of mind action is more of a practice of how I'm growing spiritually, and everything around me grows. So there's a big difference, and there's one that the law of mind action stays with you forever, and the law of attraction only works when you work. So that's the difference between the joy from coming from me, being open to the joy of others, or the joy coming from outside of me. Now, the joy from outside of you, like I used JW as an example, the joy outside of you still can trigger that joy inside of you. You can recognize, can light that fire even more, because it's always there. All of these abilities, in fact, we've got these 12 powers on the walls here. Whenever you want to, you can read the little plaque next to it. But these banners represent the 12 powers of man and of humanity, really, I should say. It's the 12 powers of man, but it's a Platonic verbiage. So women have the same 12 powers. But they are, each one of them, we have all 12 powers. How we decide to light that fire, to open it up in our life, is up to us. And we don't always do that. This is from Charles Fillmore's The Revealing Word. And it's the definition of joy. And I think there's multiple definitions of joy, but this is the one I pulled out. The happiness of God expressed through his perfect idea man. Idea, which is man. Okay? And see, that's where everything turns for us, really, when we think about it, like I was talking about earlier, as far as the teachings of unity. When we talk about God's perfect idea, which is you, that puts a lot of responsibility on you, doesn't it? And that means, wait, whoa, I have to live up to what, instead of what would Jesus do, what would I do?
Right.
Woo, that's a lot. And I can see people leave and walking to the doors, right? And that's okay, because they're not ready for it, like Doris was saying. But when you're ready, when you have that spark lit within you, and you understand, it's like somebody that has never been to Unity before, or any type of, it's like the indigenous people when the boats Christian people would go to them and they would try to convert people. It's like, oh, I'm hearing this for the first time, and it's really connecting to me inside. What is going on with my life? Well, that connection inside has always been there. And it's not derogatory to any type of other faith, especially Christianity or anybody. I think, a lot of people, I know a lot of people in Unity's history, a lot of people that, since we don't have it, come down in Christianity, that come down to the altar and get saved. A lot of people, see, that's a spark. That's letting them understand that divinity is within them. And a lot of people end up continuing to investigate that and understand that, wow, there's more to it than just getting saved. It's not about going through someone else. It's about me doing what I am guided from God to do, how to live. And so it snowballs into a bunch of stuff. Now, that doesn't mean you have to everybody needs to go to seminary and everything. What it means, because seminary, anyway, neither here, we're not going there. Anyway, what it does mean, though, is on a personal level, you have the opportunity, which will greatly benefit you in numerous ways, just like Jesus, to understand more about your own spirituality if you want to look into it. But anyways, it says it's perfect idea, which is us. God's perfect idea. Joy and gladness are strength-giving, especially if the mind is fixed on the things of spirit. So when we recognize that joy within us and we start practicing bringing it out, one of the, I said a minute ago about kids can bring you joy, but it's not always joyful having them. When it's not always joyful having them, one of those times is when we need to figure out that joy within us at the most hardest time, isn't it? But we need to figure out how to use that joy to represent to them that that's not really what we want to do. Okay, whatever it is. So he has an affirmation for this too, and it says, the joy of the Lord, which is from the Bible, of course, the joy of the Lord is my strength. And so, as we know, every human condition that has ever been experienced, and that you might find it hard to find sometimes, but every human condition, everything that you've ever experienced in life is in the Bible. But it has to be related to nowadays, and you don't have to know how to use it. I mean, if you're using the Bible and you're seeing things that doesn't make sense to you and don't sound like it's the gospel, which is good news, then you have to either refocus on that or learn a different place of it to figure out how it is the good news. Because if it isn't the good news, it's not bringing it to you the way it was intended. Because there's different levels in our life, isn't there? I mean, when we're a baby, we know certain things. When we are, as we grow, we learn different things, don't we? Not only that, but we are also brought up in different ways, aren't we? I sometimes remember, and I haven't used this example in a long time. I don't know if I can, actually. Because I don't think it probably won't. Some things we see in life, you can't relate to other people because it touched you in a certain way. And I'll never forget one. This has been many, many years ago. So, excuse me. Okay. Many, many years ago, a boy was not talked into, but raised as a hateful environment. And this is a true story. And was strapped with a bunch of bombs and went out to this is in the Middle East, of course, went out to the Israeli army to blow himself up and kill as many Israelis as he could, Jews in their opinion. But anyway, he went out there, and one of the Israeli army people, I'm sorry. Most of their people, not all of them, but most of the people, like any army, they're young. They're not old. This was a kid, though. This was a kid that had strapped bombs on him. I mean, he was probably 10, 12, the most. But anyway, the Israeli army guy took off his vest and all his armament. I'm sorry. Went out to the boy and talked to him. And it didn't take long for the boy to recognize that that's another human being. That's another Christ spirit that I've been told wasn't. If you're told all your life that other people don't deserve to live, then you'll believe that, especially from trusted people like your parents or your caregivers, whatever it is, you'll believe that. But when you look at it and when you actually personally experience it, just like your spiritual journey, it comes to a different idea for you. Because there's these seeds inside of you that are your Christ self. And they're ready, willing to grow inside of you. And all it takes is a little spark from something or someone. It can be sparked from the outside, but it's within you. And so what happened there was the boy ended up not blowing himself up and trying to disarm him, and or take his bombs off and everything. But it ended up working out that nobody got hurt. But the point is, sometimes at critical levels, when we're really at a critical level as far as height of things, if you're in that instance, if you're in that situation, your emotions are at their highest, aren't they? You could die right then, which would put everybody on edge. But the guy, for some reason, the Israeli soldier, had some type of connection with the boy and was able to do that. I mean, he surely wasn't told that by anybody to do that. So we have these experiences in life where they can come from the outside, not even actually have us involved in them like this one was for me. And we can recognize that in our own self. Do you follow me? You can understand how that can build in you and know that the Christ is within everybody. Now, it's hard for us sometimes when we have a difference with somebody to recognize the Christ within them. And that's okay. You don't have to right then, but it is a practice. It is a practice. Are we living, this is interesting too, are we living our joy in life or someone else's? Because, I've seen, and I think that y'all have heard this too probably many times, is, sometimes you see a lot of parents, and you're kind of putting it out there, but you don't really need to, but you see a lot of parents trying to live their life through their kids. Have you seen that? And there's, well, first of all, there's no need of that. You want your kids to do the best they can and be the best they can. All of us do, as far as parents or caregivers, and all of us should as far as humans do. We want to see the humanity continue to grow and continue to be better and get along and everything. But we can't live our life through somebody else. And that's the same as far as the spirituality. The boys we're bringing up, and I have a sibling, two siblings, one sister and one brother. And, they have different, even though we were all raised in unity, they have different outlooks on spirituality than I do. And we all can continue to grow our spirituality, but it's on an individual basis. It has to be on an individual basis. It can't be through somebody else. We can bring that joy from the outside. Hi, buddy. We can bring that joy from the outside that we get from the outside into us, but only, as far as spirituality, only to the point where we can grow our joy from inside. And it can happen. We just have to recognize the fact that this is really cool happening to me and where it's from, where it's coming from. It's not really that hard. This is from Luke, I think, if I remember right. But anyway, this is Jesus speaking, and it's a little bit longer, but I wanted to tell you all of it because it can't, like most of the stories in the Bible, if you read the whole thing, if you read the whole story, I'm not talking about the whole Bible, but you can read whatever, but if you read the whole story, there's a lot of stuff packed in there, so it's kind of interesting sometimes. And so this is the part on joy, though. It says, as the Father has loved me, which he's saying is, God has loved me, so have I loved you. So he's saying right here that God has loved me, and I'm here to teach you how God has loved you too, even though I've loved you that way. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will remain in my love. Okay? So, my commands, not my commandments. See how you're trained sometimes? You will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. So, this is the part, this is one of the parts that's kind of confusing sometimes, because we read that part where it says, you are just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. You can read that, and if you're not thinking it's good news, then you can say, well, there you go. Even Jesus, if Jesus doesn't obey God's commandments, then you're out the door, right? You remember the movie? I don't know if you've seen the movie. There's been a few of them. It has the Fockers in them. I don't remember. What do you remember? What's the name of that? Anyway, it's Meet the Parents, I think it's called, or something. And anyway, he's always saying, you're not in the circle of trust. Wasn't it the circle of trust? Yes. I think it was. Anyway, says you're not in the circle of trust. It's kind of like this, really. Some people read that and say, well, you're out of God's circle of trust now because you didn't obey something. Well, what happens really in true life, in our spiritual life, is that you're not getting the benefit that God intended for you. It doesn't mean that God is going to kick you out and you're gone. No way you can come back. It means that you're just not getting the benefit that you were born to have. But if you don't get the benefit, then it's on you. So it's not anything bad, but you can translate. Some people translate it into that. Excuse me. And so it continues. It says, I have told you this so that my joy may be in you. So Jesus is teaching all of this stuff because of the fact that, he was a Jew. And he was, the Jewish tradition and Jewish teachings taught something different, didn't it? Jewish teachings teach that you have to do certain things. You have to have a kosher kitchen, a regular kitchen. Well, you don't have to have the regular, but you definitely have to have a kosher kitchen. But you have to do and live a certain way to be in the Jewish religion. Now, do all Jews do that? I guarantee you no. But that's not anything that we need to look at. What we need to look at is the idea that Jesus was teaching that that's not, the blessings of God are not only to certain people. The blessings of God are available to everyone. And this, of course, didn't make the Jewish leaders happy, did it? I have told you this so that my joy, I just told you that, and that your joy may be complete. My command is this, and this is another one that kind of gets confused, especially the younger you are. Love each other as I have loved you. That's not the confusing part. Greater love has no one than this, because I wanted to finish this. That's from John. I should have known that. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. I don't know if you, usually it happens, I don't know, probably around middle school or high school, but your kids, since this is our, I don't know how many, cycle of them, your kids get to be thinking, oh, my friends are the best. My friends are the greatest. I don't have, I don't really like my parents anymore. My friends are great, though. They're just excellent. and I'd lay my life down for him, like this says. That's not really what he's saying. What he's saying, and just like he was saying on the Jewish sect, as far as the family of developed spiritual people, is that he's saying that if we are all believe, as far as friends, we're all believing that we can be in God's blessings. And that's what he's referring to when he refers to friends, not referring to someone over my parents or something like that. Because that does happen in our life, doesn't it? It happens, we have this time in our life where we're experiencing all different, essentially hormonal changes, and having a lot of things going on in our life that affects what we're thinking. And that doesn't mean, though, that we have to change our life as far as our spiritual path. Because it's kind of tough enough sometimes without having to move away from your support, isn't it? We can have the fullness of joy. We can have joy through the wholeness of spirit. And that's really the only way that we can have it. You know, joy, laughter, of course, comes from joy. And I've said many times, because it's true, is that you cannot laugh at something and be worried about something at the same exact time. And so when somebody tells you a joke, well, see, you had an opportunity to have good joy earlier. You didn't take it. So when somebody tells you a joke, though I wasn't even thinking about that till just then, but when somebody tells you a joke that you like and you laugh at, Francie and I like to watch Jim Gaffigan. But anyway, when you hear a joke or see something that's funny and you laugh, you're not thinking about anything negative at that moment. Nothing. You're just enjoying yourself. And that's what full joy is, because that thing came from you. Because there's a lot of things that people will laugh at, as far as you and me, that will be funny, that the other one won't think's funny, right?
Right.
And the reason usually that the other one doesn't think it's funny is why? Is because of either their own experiences, or they think that it was intended, the person giving it intended it wrong, whatever. But that's your hangout, really. Your joy is not limited by somebody else. I mean, it can be if you allow it to be, but it's not limited by somebody else. You know, we've gone through a time for, I think we're getting out of it. I think mainly it was through COVID and right before, where a lot of comedians, now I don't agree with a lot of comedians, they go a little bit overboard sometimes, but you know, a lot of comedians were really put down really hard because of whatever reason. They think it might be a racial joke or whatever. But before that time, you know, we were pretty good as far as the American society about laughing at ourselves. Now, I don't mind that. That doesn't bother me. You know, if someone's directing something at someone in a malice way, then yeah, that would bother me. But most of the time, jokes are just jokes. And they're not meant to hurt you because of whatever your background is. And we have to learn to take it that way. That doesn't mean that somebody can be mean and get away with it. I'm not saying that. But we have to be, as far as our joyful experience in life, we're cutting off our own joy if we decide, hey, you know, we're not going to. And it doesn't mean you have to laugh at it either. But, you know, I've learned to try not to condone those things that are you know, borderline or whatever. Because some of them can be. But I know that some people have taken offense to my jokes when I never even thought that it could be taken offense to. So you have to kind of weigh your options there. But don't let somebody take your joy is the point there. Don't let somebody take your joy because you control that. Constantly there, joy is constantly there, but joy is not a constant in the human condition. And that's what I was just saying. We do not have joy we're not always laughing, are we? There's a reason for that. You know, there's some things that we need to not laugh through. Yet joy is always there as far as in our body, in our spiritual understanding, in our spiritual self. But it's not a constant in the human condition. So if we understand that, then we can have the perfect meld of what it is joy that we can have and what joy is, you know, not necessarily. I mean, I can't be happy when the Miami Dolphins lose a football game. I just can't. But, it's not restricting me from having joy in my life, right?
Just
Okay.
the rest of us.
I'll tell you what, though. See, that's a good. You wouldn't, unless you knew me, you really don't know. But it used to be a lot more serious than it was now for me in football. A lot more serious. So I'm glad that I've grown spiritually to understand that that's silly to place my joy on something outside of me. You follow me?
Yeah.
Silly. Now, when we talk about the Texas Longhorns, it's not silly. But anyway.
Go dogs.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I like them. I like them. I hope we get to play them again. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. And I repeated this before because we already saw it. To understand that your joy is not really fully complete unless you're on that spiritual journey. And, people may say hooey to that, but that's not, that is the truth. Your joy, I know, I just figured it out, darn it. I shouldn't have got emotional on that story, but I know why I did now. It's because I was stupid enough to start watching It's a Wonderful Life before I came to church. Why did I do that? I knew when I started watching that show, is this a smart thing, Warren? No, it's not a smart thing, but we're going to watch a little bit of it. The boys were in there and I was explaining. Anyway, shouldn't have done that. I'm going to watch the end of it when I get back. Anyway, other things outside of us can't control our joy unless we allow it to. And it's so interesting that we do allow it to sometimes. So don't allow other things to prevent your joy from happening. Because God is blessing you now and always. We don't recognize that all the time, but always God is blessing us. So if that is so, then we can abide in our joy at all times, right?
Right. Absolutely.
All right. God bless you. We're done.